Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Wednesday, the 28th of February. It is game day, of course, as Rangers head over to Rugby Park to take on Kilmarnock in the Scottish Premiership this evening. To look ahead to the game, I'm Derek Clark, of course, and I'm joined by Joshua Barry ahead of the big one. How's it going, Joshua?
Yeah, we said big 3 points quite a lot recently, but feels like a big 3 points. Obviously, lots been made of the game. Kilmarnock, I think they've won 3 of their 6 Old Firm games. Clement was saying yesterday at his press conference. Obviously, Derek, it's where Rangers lost on the opening day of the season as well. I think it'd be a really big win if they could go there tonight and get 3 points. Myself and Chris will be there, so yeah, really looking forward to it and looking forward to previewing it as well.
Yeah, Kilmarnock unbeaten since losing at Ibrox on the 2nd of January. They're in fine fettle under Derek McInnes, and I'm sure they'll be well up for the game this evening, as will Rangers, of course. We'll discuss their predicted lineup shortly. Just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, the MPH Group. If you're looking for some home improvements, folks, you know the drill by now. Give these guys a call. The all-important links are in the description below. Right, we will start with... where shall we start, Josh? Our predicted lineups, do you reckon? And then we'll touch on the press conference yesterday. He did confirm, incidentally, that he won't risk Kemar Roofe on the plastic pitch, which I assumed would be the case, given that he's just returning from injury and you cannot risk him on that surface. So he has been wrapped in cotton wool. He did play in that B team game against Dundee on Monday. So he scored as well after just 4 minutes. He'll be ready for the weekend, barring any sort of disaster between now and then. So with that in mind, let's bring up... We'll
go with yours first. We'll put you on the spot first.
This is the team I'm going for. So I've gone for Butland in goal. Back four of Tavernier Goldson. I've got Leon Balogun coming back in. Ridvan over on the left-hand side. Lundstrom and Sterling in the midfield. Diamande just playing slightly further forward with a forward line consisting of Oscar Cortez on the left, Ross McCausland coming back in on the right-hand side, and Fabio Silva replacing Cyril Dessers up top. I do expect Dessers to, if he isn't starting, he will make an impact from the bench. I think this game might suit Leon Balogun. John Souttar, ditto, like Kemar Roofe reasons. I'm a bit anxious about him playing on that surface. I know he has played on it before, but I don't think Rangers necessarily weaken in any way, shape or form with Leon coming back in this evening. Diamande is used to playing on the artificial surface. Nordsjælland played on it. Lots of teams in Denmark have got artificial surfaces. I think he will excel tonight. And of course, he's very versatile. So I would like to see him pushing and helping at that front three. It was interesting to hear from him, incidentally, yesterday. First time we have heard from Mohamed since joining from the club when he was put up for the press, and he spoke very well. I think Sterling provides the industry in the middle of the park alongside Lundstrom. Ross McCausland, I think, went off the boil a little bit, but he's still contributing and came out of the team, and I think he deserves a shot over on that right-hand side. Joshua, where do you disagree?
Okay, I'll pull mine up, Derek, and we'll I think I'm 3 away from you. I think tonight is a game where it's a fine balance, and I'm reading some of the comments as they come through. Kilmarnock are in great form. This is a difficult game, even if Kilmarnock aren't in great form. And there's the narrative, the overarching narrative being that this is where Rangers lost at the start of the season. I think, Derek, this has really been bookmarked in a lot of people's calendars as if Rangers can get through this with, am I right in saying it'd be 10 games to go in the league if Rangers get through this tonight? I think maybe 11.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I think it's 10. It's a big game. Kilmarnock in really good form, and they're in good form against Old Firm this season. But it's that fine line between, we've seen Rangers in the past, I think, and maybe we're too guilty of looking at this, but we've seen Rangers in the recent past maybe overstate that part of it, overstate winning the battle first and all these elements, which are part of the game, but also shouldn't overstate the fact that it's still a football game. Yes, on a different surface. Yes, on a difficult surface against a difficult opponent. But what we've seen so far from Rangers away from home is that it's moments of quality that have won that. So I think my predicted lineup is selected, hopefully with that in mind. a good amount of legs in there, some adaptation to consider the type of game it's going to be, but also recognising the fact that Rangers are also in fantastic form, and if they continue on the course that they have done, they should be able to go and get 3 points tonight. So the only difference I have in the back four is Suter. I think he's just been in really good form. I know that sometimes he can get caught under the ball a bit, and it was obviously his mistake really at the start of the season when Rangers lost that game. Balogun, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong there, but I don't think he's played a minute with the mask yet. Is that right? Or you might also in the comments can tell me. I just would be surprised if they throw him right back in for this one. I think given the form that Suter is in, expect him to play. Ridvan and Barisic, I think there is an argument that if a game's going to suit Barisic, it's probably this one, because the fullbacks will probably be wide quite a lot to invite pressure. I put a tweet out there saying Kilmarnock will cross to the back post, and I know defending the back post has maybe not always been seen as Barisic's strength, and obviously we wrote that in-depth piece about Ridvan yesterday. I just think if there's one game where a team might really, really try and target size, and listen, I don't think that's been an issue since the Hearts game, Derek. I think Ridvan, even if he doesn't win headers, he challenges well. But I think that's a consideration. We saw the when late on at St Mirren, they brought James Scott on, he's a winger forward, but he's quite big, probably 6'2". And we saw Clement respond from the bench and bring on Borna Barisic in that game as well for the final kind of 15 minutes of the 1-0 away win at St Mirren. So not totally set on the left back position, but I just think Ridvan's been in really good form as well, and what he's going to give you going forwards, even on that type of pitch, I'd be inclined to start him. The midfield, I'll start on the right. I'm playing Dujon Sterling on the right, I think, because he gives you that option of if Kilmarnock are attacking with a front four at points, he can give you a bit more covering coming backwards. We saw his impact away at St Johnstone. I think it's going to be a game that requires quite physical, direct running, gives you a bit more presence at set pieces. And we've also not really seen him play in the middle since the winter break, away at Hibs for a period of time. But St Mirren away, St Johnstone away, it's been off one of the sides that he's played. So I think he might start off the right. The midfield, agree with you in terms of Diomande. He'll definitely be in there in Lundstrom. And Tom Lawrence, he started away at Livingston on that pitch. And if you remember the first goal, it was a goal in transition that came off the back of a Tom Lawrence pass. Again, with Ridvan, I think it's balancing the legs and the physicality with a good bit of style and creativity in that midfield as well. So I think he might start at the number 10 position. And Silva, Cortez, I think, speaks for itself at the moment. Silva, the reason I think he's been starting maybe away from home over Dessers is that when you're playing a game, if Rangers are building up back to front really quickly, I think Silva's quicker. And although Dessers' movement that's where he's been scoring a lot of goals from, moving off the back of defences, I just think there's a reason that Silva's started away at Hibs, started away at St Johnstone. I know he didn't start away at St Mirren, but I think that was after a midweek game where there was a game coming up, or maybe not. It's so hard to predict at this point. The point being, I think Silva's speed and his ability to run defences more, although at home you want him more involved in the game, he's a really hard worker as well, and I think that he might be put in there to really run the Kilmarnock defence. So that's my best guess. Do not expect to get it right because Kilmarnock have been so hard to predict, but interested to see what everyone else says, because I'm sure everyone will be telling us that we're wrong.
No, I don't think I've got one lineup right since Clement took charge. I might have had one, but he often flings it a surprise into the starting 11. Wouldn't be surprised to see a surprise or two tonight. Like you say, Joshua, if Barisic comes back in, I think that we shouldn't be too surprised at that. Ditto, he played Scott Wright at McDermott Park. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Scott Wright comes back in as well. So, yeah, we'll soon find out. The thing is, though, whoever he does play tonight, you have ultimate trust in this squad now, whereas before you're thinking you're a bit apprehensive and thinking, are Rangers capable of getting the result? Is the squad depth as strong as it could be? You trust everyone now, and that's credit must go to the manager for instilling that belief in each and every one of them.
Yeah, I thought the press conference, I was off yesterday, so I didn't watch it live, but I thought the press conference was he's just interesting, isn't he, Clement? And the story about the, I don't know if I presume most people have watched it by now, but the story about, if you've not, you need to watch it for the purpose of his story, of how when his player was out for 9 games, he used a university professor to explain that, I don't know, biomechanics. I know that's a word that's flying around.
I've not heard that since Michael Stewart brought it up famously all those years ago. Because and the story was because Clement had a hip operation. Yeah, he knew, he'd read into the way the hips were. It was some crazy story.
anyway, the point being, I think that he just seems like someone who, and we've got a couple of pieces in the comments which we'll maybe touch upon, Derek. He seems like someone who's really completely done a 180 on the squad morale from the start of the season, which was such a low moment for Rangers and really took the wind out the sails. Remember it very well. Feels simultaneously like it was yesterday and like it was 2 years ago. But Rangers didn't offer much on that day, and for what was supposed to be a big bright new dawn, it was a really disappointing day. So I think they go there in a much healthier place. Is a totally different team, and McInnes said that as well in his press conference yesterday, speaking about Rangers having a far more robustness to them as a team, and I think that'll be important tonight.
Yeah, I'll read you that comment he made, because he was asked about, of course, title races he's been involved in over in Belgium. He was asked, what was the closest title race you had in Belgium as a manager? Every time it was like that, because in Belgium they had this idea to divide the points near the end. I remember a lot of things. That's the problem with my brain sometimes. I remember too much. With Genk, the first title as a manager, we were fighting with Bruges all season. We were in Europe for a long time. We were in the Cup for a long time. We had a lot of games in a really small squad. I couldn't rotate like I'm doing here in the same way. 3 weeks before the playoffs, our playmaker and the guy where all the offensive football was built around, he left to go to the MLS because there was a clause in his contract that he could do that. So I couldn't be angry at the club. I started talks in January with him, but in the end, he went and he explained to me that he could not turn down this opportunity because it was something that would not only help him and his wife, but also his children money-wise. He showed me the numbers and it was crazy. So at the end, you need to let him go, and you also don't have the power to stop him. It was a big blow, and everybody was saying it was finished for Genk now. That was 3 weeks before the playoffs. In the last game before the playoffs, we played a home game, and the other very important midfielder, Malinovsky, after Puzuela left to go to Toronto, got a red card. He was suspended for 9 games because he fell down with his foot. He touched the chest of another player, and the committee said 9 games. I went crazy in my head because you lose your number 10, and we didn't have another number 10 of high quality, and then you lose your number 8 also. For me, the 9 games was a crazy result because he fell down and because of the movement and how he fell. I know a thing about hips because I had a hip operation, and the movement when the hip goes dead one moment, or it breaks your legs or go back. So I went to a professor of a university to ask if I was right, and he said, yes, you're right. So I asked him to come with me to the committee. We went together to explain the story about what happened. The committee understood, and he got 0 games. So they went back on their decision because it was pure biodynamics. In the end, we won the title, but there were a lot of stories before, and it was an exciting period. He was also asked as well, do you think your experience will help you in the title race? It will help me. I know what it is. I know what the dangers are, and I try to explain that to my players. I know all the excitement and noise around it and living and looking at results of others and all the stupid things you can do that is of no use. I try to explain that to my players, so that helps in a way. Definitely with a few players. That's why I said in the beginning we're only focused on ourselves. I made a mistake before when I was a player, so I know really well what to do to win titles. Francis, with the point here, Josh, I love the gaffer's pressers yesterday. Could listen to him all day. She's absolutely bang on. Thought it was really good from him yesterday. Just over 18 minutes worth of content yesterday, which is a nightmare to transcribe right enough. Me and Chris were busy scurrying away, getting it on the website. But yeah, you do feel confident with Clement at the helm. He has won titles before. He has that muscle memory. And you do have that sort of comfort feeling, I guess, that he's able to direct this ship towards its target.
Yeah, there's 2 things that stood out to me. Jack Butland did that interview with Tom English at the BBC the day before, I think, and he made a comment, something along the lines of, I know he seems like the big bad wolf in the media, but he's not like that internally. And yesterday when Clement was telling the story of, I presume it was Balogun nodding his head in approval at Souttar's assist, he was speaking about when they had, if you've not watched it, Rangers had a team debrief, and they were watching Souttar's assist, and he said another centre-back kind of really complimented him, another centre-back who's competing for that place. And Clement said that's what makes his day, and was really excited about that dynamic. And then similarly, strikers competing in training, one missed and the other, should we say, slagged them off for missing, and they were both laughing. Presumably it was Dessers missing the target, I don't know. Yeah. And he said the same thing. And I think there's 2 pieces linked in the comments, Derek. One is with Clement's former assistant, Johan van Roomst, who worked with him. We spoke about it at the time when we did this piece, but he worked with him for 6 years, so really unique insight. And the other is a piece that we did off the record, speaking to a number of people who'd worked with Clement across his various clubs. And it really hammers home on a point that we've reiterated, having learned more about him and spoken to people who've worked with him, just the vitality and the importance of man management to him. And the fact that Johan van Roomst, his assistant, said to me something along the lines of, if he knew that a player wasn't coming in to work with a smile, just one player with a smile on his face, it would kill him. You hear repeatedly players, when they're not playing, speak about the fact about how it's the importance of the whole group together and not just the starting 11. You can see that with his squad rotation. Clement's someone who's used at all of his previous clubs, I think maybe 3 or 4, has used psychologists to better understand his players, so then he can tailor his man management to him. So, and this is why I think, in retrospect, looking back at this appointment, it was a really intelligent one, because as we were touching upon the other day when we were talking about leadership and how, we always get caught up in what style is a manager going to play and how is that style going to get the best out of the team and how is that then going to lead to points. But what sometimes we brush over is, how is a manager, how is their leadership strategy, how are they as a person going to create a feeling within a group that felt so far away back at the start of the season, when it was one of the most difficult the Rangers had encountered in recent years, and the Ibrox atmosphere was really toxic. And I think that's what you've seen over these last number of months. Someone, Clement, who really prioritises his man management. You see him when players come off the side of the pitch, Derek, he always speaks to them for about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and these pieces give a bit more context as to why he's like that, and with those people who've worked with him in the past and experienced that. And I remember speaking to a player at his first club who was injured for something like 8 or 9 months of that first season. Clement was only there for 1 season. And what stuck out to me was just how positively he spoke to him, despite the fact that he hardly ever played for him, because he was still really part of it, still involved. It reminded me of a story of, I can't remember where I heard this, but Christian Benteke speaks about Klopp so well, but Klopp hardly played him and tried to get rid of him from the first day. But some managers just have this ability to, get players on side, and that probably is something that's lost a little bit in the modern era, when people like me just want to talk about how the fullbacks are going to play when a new manager comes in. So hopefully those pieces, if people want to read them, give a bit more context as to why Clement is like this as a man manager, and how he's been able to build this season to a point of lots of potential. And obviously, as we keep coming back to, Derek, it didn't feel like that a few months ago.
No, he's been a revelation. He really has. There's no doubt about it. Let's get to a few of the comments coming in. Alan Hamilton says, "Morning, love Clement's presser yesterday. Boss is pure class. Be tricky one tonight on that Subbuteo pitch, but still win 2 or 3-0. So Alan is certainly confident this evening." Bluebells are Blue says, "I wonder who the player was he was talking about who went to the MLS. Sounded like a big money. Who it was? It was Alejandro Pozuelo. There was a player, he formerly on the books of Swansea City." Was a player he was talking about with regards to that. A nice comment here from Robert Hodge. He says, "Morning, gents. I always want to join live and get a few questions in, but the podcast get me through the dog walks at night. 3 points and along the road tonight. Good to have you tuning in, Robert, on this Wednesday morning. Of course, looking ahead to a huge game this evening at Rugby Park. An interesting comment coming in just on potential team selection again, Joshua. James McGill says, "I think Ryan Jack might be back tonight. Do you think that could be a possibility in that midfield? You'd have a bit of bite in there."
Yeah, could, I guess, be possible with then Diomande pushing up a line. I'm just going on the basis that Lawrence has played there recently, played at Livingston, was taken off after, 55, 60 minutes at the weekend. Yeah. But I think that is a possibility. We've not seen Jack starting. When was the last time we saw him start? Maybe 2 weeks ago, a week and a half? Yeah.
What game?
It was. But the point being, sorry, that Clement, obviously, as he keeps reiterating, wants to build players' fitness levels up, and he's taking them out and putting them back into the team as a result of that. So James might be spot on. I could see Jack in there next to Lundstrom with Diomande higher. I think there's 2 certainties in that midfield. I think Lundstrom plays. I think Diomande plays. I think Sterling plays somewhere. I think Cortez plays, and then it's a question of the striking position. I think that'll be Fabio Silva. And who the third midfielder is in there, Derek. I think it'll be Suter, because Balogun hasn't played since the mask has has went on, and Ridvan, we've already spoken about him as well, but he's in really good form, so expect him to start, and then maybe Barisic to come on later in the game. But the squad, Rangers squad, is undeniably in a stronger place, and the midfield has options again. I think it's quite telling that at the moment no one's saying, will Nico Raskin start? And that's something that
that's a good point. Of course, he's come on, he's made cameos, but we've discussed it, I think, on the video last week, Joshua, about Nico Raskin, about his Rangers' future. I still think he'll contribute between now and the end of the season, but I think it's fair to ask for a little bit more from him. I do understand he is coming back from an injury. It might take him a wee bit of time to get fully integrated into the team, but it's up to Nico to prove to the manager that he's worthy of a starting place at this moment in time. He's not doing enough.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because also he's not really played. So it's not as if he's been on bad form because he's not played a run of games. But then why is he not getting into the team? Is it something stylistically? I think we last saw him start away from home at St Mirren in that 1-0 game. He was taken off after an hour. Is it to do with... I maybe feel that it could be to do with the fact that Clement's midfield is very specific in the way it's set up, and Raskin has just missed quite a broad stroke of playing in that. I still think he's a really good player and just needs a couple of games to remind people of that. Because as I say, it's not as if Derek's in a bad run of form where he's played 5 games from the start and he's been terrible. He's had cameo appearances here or there, probably quite difficult to influence things. He obviously started then away at Hibs before the St Mirren game, but went off at half-time because of I think he had kicked his ankle or something like that. So it's been a frustrating season for him, and it will be interesting to see how Clement manages that one, because I expected him to play a little bit more frequently coming back from injury. Perhaps there's been some complications there. Sometimes it can take players time to just come back from injury in general. But yeah, I do think it's telling at the moment that someone who really was the centrepiece of that Rangers midfield at the start of the season isn't in that conversation right at the moment now. As I've been saying the last few weeks, I still think he's a really good player. He just needs a few games to remind people of that.
Yeah, there was a comment came in. Bob thinks.
I think that previous comment was saying he can't pass, can't tackle. That for me is like, obviously he can. Like, he has weaknesses to his game, but it's just classically like when a player is not played for a while. Raskin last season, I think when he came into the club, was someone who people thought, okay, he's really good off the ball. He's a good ball carrier. I think he can be quite risky in his passing sometimes, and you saw that when he came on at Ibrox the weekend, gave a couple of passes away. He's not been the Belgium under-21 captain and been as highly rated.
No, he's got talent. He's got talent, but he needs to, as the saying goes, get his finger out, I guess. But I guess it is harsh. He is coming back from injury. Matthew Ross with the point. He says Raskin seems a bit one-dimensional since the rise of Sterling and the capture of Diamande. That's the thing. When he joined last January, there was no Dujon Sterling and Mohamed Diamande in that midfield. So Rangers have strengthened, and it was about time too that the Rangers looked to strengthen the middle of the park. Sterling, I don't think anyone would have seen him moving into that midfield role, but he's certainly taken to it like a duck to water. And I think he's got a big part to play. Probably will either start or come off the bench tonight. Dujon Sterling, such a good player at this moment in time, so versatile. Denzel with the point, with just looking ahead to the summer, says any bets against Raskin being sold in the summer? Listen, he, along with all of the squad, will have price tags on their head. Rangers need to kickstart that player trading model. Wouldn't be surprised if he was offloaded in the summer, Joshua. Rangers would get a bit of cash for him. Is that something that we might see happen if he doesn't maybe recapture that form between now and the end of the season? Do you think he will be moved on?
No, I think he'll stay. Todd Cantwell is someone who it took him when he came back from that injury, and he was back from injury, October, November time, and Raskin didn't come back until January. It took Cantwell probably a few months to get, but I think before Christmas and certainly after that Old Firm game, people were saying the similar noises of criticism were starting to bubble up, and he needed a good run of form to go and quieten that and remind people that he's a really good player. I think Raskin needs that run of form, but I still think that he's a really good player, and he's a player that Rangers will look at and think, as they did when they signed him, he's someone who we can sell for more money down the line. I agree with Tam there.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he's the best midfielder in the world. I just think that the narrative can swing so much when a player's not played and has come back from injury. And listen, he might go and have a terrible game tonight, and maybe he's not part of Clement's plans. I don't know that. But I just think that he's a young player who's started well at Rangers, struggled to kick on, as everyone did at the start of this season. And I think he struggled from being moved to position. Clearly, I think you can see in his play, and I think you saw this off the bench at the weekend, he's kind of rushing things and a bit frustrated and trying to make things happen. But I think, like Cantwell, he probably just needs a bit of time to get back from his injury. He needs a run in the team, you'd imagine, to show his best form. He has hardly played, and let's see what happens. But and he also comes into a difficult position at the moment because the midfield, when he left it, didn't have many takers, and at the moment, thankfully for Clement, it has a few more options in there.
Yeah, just harping back to some of the other comments that Clement made in his press conference yesterday. First of all, this comment from Steve McGillespie says, Clement is treating these players like actual people. You can tell that he's a top bloke. Yeah, absolutely. That comes across from his press conferences, and whenever you hear the manager speak, he certainly seems like a guy you would like to play football for. In terms of tonight, of course, we all know about the artificial surface. The manager was asked about that yesterday. He says, what is different about the challenge on that pitch? A lot of things. I made a comparison with the game of tennis and playing at Wimbledon or on a clay court that is a little bit like that. The ball goes faster, so you need to be more precise. On a grass pitch, when you give a pass, it slows down after a while. On an artificial, it keeps its speed or goes even faster along the way. The ball bounces in a totally different way. If you give passes in the air or shots at goal, you cannot go with your foot underneath the ball like you normally do on a grass pitch. You need to adapt your body towards that. Also, the way of turning, the way of sprinting, the way of stopping is different. So that is a lot of things that are different, but it is what it is. In the league, there is a decision for the moment that it's still possible to play on those surfaces. I don't think in the Premier League it is possible, or in La Liga, or in the top leagues. I hear in Scotland, everybody is also convinced now it's not the best way to play football, but we are going to go there to get the 3 points. I said it before, also before Livingston. I don't care if it's on that pitch or on a parking lot that we need to play. We're going to go there to get the 3 points, and that is the most important thing. It said similar, I think, remember when the Rangers went up to Dundee, Joshua, as well, of course, when they had that big delay about playing on the parking lot. But he's right about the artificial surfaces. It is what it is. It is going to be a leveler tonight. As Michael Beale used to always say, it won't be a beauty contest, I don't think. It's all about the 3 points tonight. Never mind that before we've discussed, remember, when the Ross County game and subsequent games, we're looking at the goal difference charts. But I think tonight, all about getting the 3 points and getting back on the road again.
Yeah, it will inevitably feel like a bigger one, as I say, because of the start of the season, because of Kilmarnock's form, and because of the fact that, you know, Celtic have went there and lost twice, and it'll be seen as if this is a game where Rangers can go and win, it will feel like a big statement. As much as Clement will try to play down those noises, they will just appear on the outside, I'm sure, not on the inside. So big game, Derek. We'll have loads of coverage of it. Looking forward to seeing how Rangers play. I think it's that, as I say, that delicate balance between you've got to don't play the game as Kilmarnock want it to be played, but try and meet their threat. And we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a really interesting one, and intrigued to see how far off we are with the team selection, because Clement obviously keeps everyone guessing, probably a strength as well, because it keeps opposition managers guessing. But expecting a big game, and hopefully Rangers can right the wrongs from the start of the season. It got off to the worst imaginable start. If they could go there and get 3 points tonight, then I think it would represent almost a different season within a season as they remain top of the league, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all on this evening, folks. Joshua and Chris heading over to Rugby Park, so we'll have your usual pre-match team news reaction video. We'll have the post-match reaction as well. We hope you can join us for that. Hopefully Rangers celebrating another 3 points on the way towards what we hope will be the recapture of the Premiership trophy. But yeah, massive game this evening. Thanks to everyone, incidentally, for interacting with the show as ever. It is greatly appreciated. You can find me and Chris's teams on the website this morning. Go and check them out, and direct abuse at me as I sometimes get with my team selections. But there you go, part and parcel of the job. But yeah, we'll speak to you a little later on, folks. Hopefully your team wins, and hopefully you enjoyed the show. Bye for now.